stuff. It's a young adults group. I was a youth pastor and then moved on to a group that is fallen out of a lot of churches, and that's the young adults. A lot of churches across the nation, they have big youth groups or whatever, and then their kids just disappear after they graduate. It's not because they move on to college. So that's just a misconception. They just don't come to church. And so God laid that on my heart and the pastor's heart at the very same time, and it was just kind of wow. I mean, God works like that. Put it like, made it burn in my heart for that, and it was just a neat thing. It came together. I prayed that he would ask me in a meeting where I was simply doing research for him on this topic, and and God just worked it out. He'd been thinking about me in the same way, and so. It was just to make it short. It was kind of a neat thing. I said, I was like, God, I really want this, and I really think He placed in my heart. I want to do this. And Brother Andy, you had here last year. I think, he can handle the youth group, but I just really want to do this, and I've got a burning for it. I think And so I said, God, why don't you get him, God, get him to ask me to do this. I was thinking I was going to make this bold proposal to him, stepping out on a limb and stuff, and so I get in the meeting and I'm telling him, what I've found about this group. I've read some books, I've researched, gone to the churches who are ministering to this group, all this stuff. And he cuts me off just a little bit, and I don't know if you know Fred already, but he's got a voice going like this, And so anyway, he goes, wait, brother. Here's what I want this to be your number one ministry. Now. And then he said something after that, and I don't know what he said. Because I'm like, what just happened? What? So it was just awesome. And I learned later that he had been thinking about asking me for a long time. I'd been thinking about this thing for a while. Isn't that cool how God just works like that? And so we've been doing that for about a year and a half or so. And the people that come, they love it. And it's not nothing about me. It's God who did the whole thing. And so we just enjoy it. They come, we sing, we eat, which is always a great part of doing that. And we have a lesson we study. We do more discussion type, instead of more of this, but it's more like that. But I lead it, and then they hang around many times. I mean, they'll hang around. We get done at 8:30, 8:40. I won't leave there till 9:30 sometimes because those wacky people won't leave, and they just want to talk and hang out. And that's great. So God's just doing a great work in that. I love it. But we've been going through the book of Philippians, and it's neat whenever you teach or preach, any of that you study, and when you do, it doesn't matter. You always learn something, and then you pass it along to them. But it's so cool because sometimes they look at you like you know all this stuff. You just knew it a week before they did. A lot of it. And so I've gone through here, and does anybody know if anybody gets a book, a study guide on Philippians, what did they say the main theme is? Does anybody know? It's always joy. This is always joy, okay? Whoever's book, Warren Wiersbe, or whoever's book you pick up, it doesn't matter. It's probably going to be joy, all right? And so I even looked up, and somebody else came up with it, which I did. It says Philippians, joy no matter what. I'm like, that's a cool slogan. So, but as I went through and we're going through the book, I was starting to think, this is more than this joy thing. By the way, if you'll just go to Philippians 4:4, that's one of the main verses, I think, and stuff that kind of grabs this whole thing. And we'll be doing a lot of Philippians, because what I did, I'm telling you, is we've been going through I think we're on our 13th lesson in it or something. I just squished it all and giving it all to y'all tonight. No, not really. There's a concept that I have found and God has showed me as I've gone through of how this joy goes deeper than I think what we grasp. At least what I grasp. Maybe you already know it, and I'm just, you can just nod your head and say, "Oh, glad you arrived" or something. But Philippians 4:4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, always." And again, I say, rejoice. So. I appreciate you guys praying for me in the back and stuff. I just want to head on. We're going to trust God and see He'll give you what He gives you tonight. He just used my voice. So, but joy, what is that? Now the world will see this and they will equate it with happiness. That's what they'll equate it with. But happiness is based on people, consequences, circumstances, whatever. And so that's why, you've got to have the latest this or that, or you've got to be in love with this person, or you've got to, you need all that stuff, and that's where happiness comes from. It's not a solid thing.
Right.
And too many times Christians equate the two. That's not what the joy is that's spoken about here. Okay, this is a whole different thing, that we're talking about. But what and I kind of knew that. I'm like, okay, I know this when we go through Philippians, and I know that, and like James, of course, you've got to know that if you're reading, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, which means trials and all that. You've got to know that what that means, because that doesn't make sense to be happy about it. Oh, thank you, God, for giving me this illness. It just seems weird. Okay? Well, it does, doesn't it? Thank you, God, my car broke down on the 15th. Awesome. Life is good. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Okay? But you can't have joy in that. But even when I started studying this, all of a sudden it's like I started noticing something different. Because another thing that I do is that God gave me the privilege to do. It's an honor. I get to teach Bible at the Christian school over there. And so when we went through Acts, so I'm encountering Paul in Philippians and in Acts. And I'm getting this picture of how Paul acts, and it doesn't fit with how most Christians would even act.
Right.
And I was just like, this is kind of weird. Paul does this. And through the mix of that, man, I started getting this thing. Now, if I say there's something like Zen-like, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, I don't know, if you watch any movies or any of this stuff, some guy's always, he lives on a higher plane and nothing seems to affect him. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can I speak out here? Is it all right?
Okay.
Do I have to hang behind this thing?
No.
Okay, awesome. Awesome, because I get like hyper and my feet have to move places. Yeah, so anyway. You'll see that in movies and stuff. And Eastern religions, they embrace this kind of thing. Okay. Tonight, what Paul's got is in a way like that, but it's not, because it's real. And what they've got, what they usually do in those Eastern religions is they will, they're getting either more in tune with themselves, which is why they meditate, which is really usually getting in tune with demons. But they meditate or something. Well, that's not what Paul's doing. He's not sitting around going, oh, that's not what he's doing. Okay, that's what he's doing. And the other thing that they'll do, Buddhists and different ones in Buddhism, they'll deny reality. And they treat it as though it's not there. That's not what Paul's doing either. But what Paul is doing, that I found, is he's living on a higher plane than the world or even most Christians live. And it's because of a mindset that he's got. And I think that is what's really this thing called joy. And that's what God has shown me as I've gone through this. And tonight, what I want to do is give you 6 points. I'm going to say that these are kind of cool because they get shorter as we get to the 6. So just in case you wonder, if we take 30 minutes to do the first one, that's all right. Don't worry, all right? They get shorter. But there's 6 ways, and I hope through that, I really hope what God's shown me in my mind, that I can get yours. I just know, it doesn't always work. If you're married, that doesn't always work. So you get what I just said. No. Anyway, but I hope so, because it's really challenging me. I want to get, what Paul has, and there's no way I'm even saying I'm close to Paul. The only thing that I'm close to Paul in some verses where he says, I've not yet attained. I'm like, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, Paul. I can identify where you're there. But, I would like to have that mindset that he had. And so I hope that I can get that across to you tonight as we go through a lot of Philippians. And really, I could have had 9 or 10 points, but I just made sure we got to 6. Because there's so much of it. I think it's just so cool. But we'll stay with the 6 tonight. Just looking at this, Warren Wiersbe, first of all, in Philippians says, you have to be careful what is called joy stealers. And what he will call those, he says those are circumstances. Now, he calls it stealers, but I actually don't think that anything or anybody can steal your joy as a Christian. You give it away. Yeah, you allow it to be taken. If it's stolen, it's from an open hand. Because it's really, Jesus brings you joy. So there's no way that can steal that, really. So his term I wouldn't quite agree with, but I get what he's saying. Before you know it, it's gone. Like, where'd that go? Okay, Okay, well, circumstances can if we let it. Okay, another thing is people. All right, ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people. I'm just kidding. Okay, but yeah, but people they can take your joy sometimes, But also there's things, and then there's worry, and these things. And as I looked at these and went over this, was doing a lesson, and I went back and looked at these, I'm like, well, these are all the things that Paul has a higher level that these don't affect him the same way. What a cool thing that all of us should be that way. I hope to be like that way. So I just let you know, I'm on a journey. I'm going to show this to you guys, and you may already know and stuff, but I'm on a journey just like you. I have not reached it. No. But it's neat to at least shoot for what Paul had. So once again, it's you can think of it in a way. It hit me like this each religion stuff, but it's not the same. Because he doesn't deny reality. He just looks at all of reality. You see, we don't see all of reality all the time, but we should. We should have an eternal perspective and see things the way that God does. But we see things the way the world does so often, don't we? Just the here and now, what I can see, and we think the way the world thinks so many times. And that's what happens. And we're not seeing what I would call the whole, if you wanted to put a label on tonight's message, is get the big picture. And so I hope you'll get that tonight. That's kind of my intro for this. Number one, this big picture, what Paul had, number one, is he had a different view of circumstances. If you go to Philippians 1 and verse 12, okay, Philippians 1:12, he had a different view of circumstances, all right? And he says, but I would ye should understand, brethren, the things which happened to me have fallen out, or that means have turned out, rather unto the furtherance of the gospel. Now, first of all, what things is he talking about? Well, you have to turn there. I'll just tell you, 2 Corinthians 11, starting verse 24, he goes through all the stuff that's happened to him. Okay? It's crazy. He says, of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. I mean, that's painful. Okay? Thrice was I beaten with rods, once I was stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, and night and day I've been in the deep, in journeys often, in perils of waters, perils of robbers, perils by my own countrymen, perils by the heathen, perils in the city. Does anybody sound like Paul's got this cushion of a life as a Christian? I don't think so. And as far as his theology that if you're doing the right thing, your life is a bed of roses, it doesn't sound like Paul is living Christianity all like he's supposed to, does it? Yeah, that doesn't seem to fit. But anyway, he said perils in the wilderness, perils in the sea, perils among false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, and watchings often, in hunger and thirst, fastings often, in cold and nakedness. This is what Paul went through. And now, do you know where he's at when he's writing this letter to the Philippians? He's in house arrest in Rome, awaiting for a trial before Caesar. That's where he's at. He's not even a free guy when he's writing this. He's in custody. I mean, that's what Paul's talking about. And yet, look what he says in verse 12. He says, but I would you should understand, brethren, the things which happened to me, all this stuff, including what's happening right now, have fallen out. It means that they've turned out, rather, unto the furtherance of the gospel. Isn't that crazy? I was going back, let's see here. I was going back in Acts. There's a thing that confused me for a little bit, and I had to look at some other people, what they said about it, get some expert opinion, because I'm not expert. But in Acts 21, Paul is getting ready to go to Jerusalem. And it says, in finding disciples in verse 4, it says, we tarried there 7 days, who said to Paul through the Spirit that he should not go up to Jerusalem. That puzzled me, because I knew Paul was supposed to go to Jerusalem. How could he say through the Spirit, then, in the Bible, that he should not go to Jerusalem? That's what these disciples said. Okay? And then there's this guy Agabus later on that'll even demonstrate to Paul. He'll give him an object lesson about what's going to happen to him. And I thought, I know my Bible doesn't contradict everything. So what's going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. This ain't original with me. This came from other guys. Okay? And I'm just glad to pass it along. What's going on is the Spirit had showed these fellows the same thing that he showed Agabus. What was going to happen to Paul. And I think the Spirit wanted Paul to know that. Prepare him. You're going to be in chains. You're going to be bound. Okay? Then these guys interpreted that to say, you shouldn't go. See, they were reading. The Spirit has showed them these things, just like Agabus. And then they're thinking, Paul shouldn't go. We all know, reading Acts, Paul was supposed to go to Jerusalem. And not only there, then he go on to Rome. That was God's will. And Paul, God even talks to him in Jerusalem and talks about, just things that happened here. You're going to go to Rome too, and stuff. And so that's what happened. And I think a lot of Christians read this the same way in their Christian life. They somehow think everything, when there's something bad or persecution happens, that is not good and it shouldn't happen. That's not Paul's perspective. You know it? But that's the way we are today, isn't it? It's like something's wrong. No, the world's wrong. But Paul said, all these things that happen to me have happened for the furtherance of the gospel. He's not saying, no, they shouldn't be happening. He's saying that they are something to help it out. Do you see what a different level of thinking that is from even most Christians today? Most Christians today, they think when bad things happen to them, that's not a good thing. Paul said, all this stuff it's good. It's promoted the gospel. And some other people have, you guys ever heard, now the younger people here probably have not, but you guys remember a pitcher named Dave Dravecky? You guys remember this guy? He pitched for, I believe it was San Francisco. He was a fairly good pitcher. But he's also a Christian, outspoken for his faith. He had a thing, he came with his arm, he injured his arm. They found out he had cancer or whatever. He had an operation on it and stuff, and he rehabilitated, doing well. Came back even before most people thought he should. Started throwing, seemed to be doing good in the game and stuff. Here's a guy, now remember, this is the way, see, we write the story. Here's the way we write the story. This guy was pitching, and he's a Christian. He's living the way he should. He's speaking to people about Christ. He's on the world stage, you might even say, definitely the national stage, pitching stuff. This is the way it's supposed to be. He's come back now, so this is what a great story. Snap. His arm, when he throws a pitch, breaks, in two. If not for the skin, the thing would have flung off with the ball. Snap, just like that. They go look at him. They find out he's got cancer again. You will never pitch again. How does that work? That doesn't make sense, does it? Does that make sense to you? Does this story make sense? How in the world is God supposed to use that? Now he can't pitch again. He had everything right here. He had a great platform for Christ. Why in the world God let that happen? Well, because after that, and having cancer, ended up having that arm amputated. He then, after that, got, as much as he could handle of speaking engagements to go and speak around the nation. Tons and tons speaking for Christ, as well as understanding people who are dealing with cancer and being able to minister to them in a Christian way. Does God know what he's doing? Yes. What happened to him happened for the furtherance of the gospel. But see, we don't read things that way, do we? And you guys, you've heard, I'm sure, you've heard of John Bunyan. Where did he write Pilgrim's Progress? In jail. He was put in there for preaching because he wasn't licensed. He wasn't doing it right. Okay? Got put in jail. What is happening that should not happen? No. God knows what he's doing. If I'm right, is that not the second highest selling book in history aside from the Bible? I think it is. Yeah, and it's an allegory, a picture story that illustrates so many truths in the Christian life. It's so neat. Yet he wrote that in jail. Might he wrote that out if he was out there preaching? Probably not. Too busy doing sermons and everything else, probably. Yeah. It's wild how God works, isn't it? But lots of times we don't see, if we don't have that kind of thinking that Paul had, we don't get that. And we sit and complain about all that stuff that happens. And we don't get it. See, and the whole time, God's trying to set up something perhaps to use us in a greater way, but we're sitting kicking and screaming the whole time. Yeah. And I know I've done it too. Yeah, but this is where Paul's at. This is where he lives. Johnny Erickson Todd, you guys heard of her? Dove in as a 16-year-old into a lake, didn't know a rock was right there. Snapped her neck, paralyzed, and stuff. But look how God has used her. She reaches people that nobody else can. The awesome, awesome thing. She has a neat quote. She says, God sometimes allows what he hates to accomplish what he loves. That's something to chew on, isn't it? God sometimes, does God take pleasure in giving us pain? Well, no, I don't think so. But she says God sometimes allows what he hates, okay, in order to accomplish what he loves. That's a pretty neat deal. That's thinking on that higher level that Paul was thinking about. And Dr. Jeremiah says adversity provides opportunities for witness. Philippians 1:12 through 13. The 13th verse, going up to when I read you, says, so that my bonds in Christ are manifest in all the palace and in all other places. You see, special soldiers, not just any soldier, but special soldiers had to be with Paul. Now, do you want to know how I bet Paul saw this? Captive audience. This guy can't go anywhere. Guess what? I'm a Roman citizen too. He can't sit and smack me in the mouth or anything else, or he gets in trouble. I'm a Roman citizen. You can't do that. So they have to listen. I bet some of those guys got saved. Here's what I do know. I do know some higher-ups got saved. Because Philippians 4:22 says, all the saints salute you, chiefly they that are of Caesar's household.
That's right.
Now see, that's where Paul's thinking. How might most of us think? Oh God, please deliver me from this. I can't believe that. Dear God, I know maybe this is to work on my character and keep me chained up here. Paul's like, I got a captive audience, man. I got somebody that gets chained to me and they can't run away. They can't go anywhere. Right. You know, when he appeared before, who was it? Was it Festus? Festus, I think, and Agrippa. You know, most of them, and he's having to do the same story again. He's been innocent every time. They can't find anything wrong, yet they keep on putting him on trial each time. You know, and they do it again. Now, we can probably look at that going, God, could you please get me delivered this time? This time I should be delivered. Because that's a natural way to think, isn't it? You know what Paul's probably thinking? I've got an audience tonight with, arguably, the two most powerful people in all of Palestine at this moment. The two most powerful people. They're coming and they want to hear what I have to say. And they're inviting all of their friends to come hear it too. See, that's thinking on a different mindset, isn't it? I want to think, I'm telling you, I ain't there necessarily. But I want to have that mindset. Why would all Christians have this mindset of all with their circumstances? Do you see how this is living on a higher plane? It's different than just everyday living. It's crazy when you look at this. Do you see where that brings joy? That kind of thing. And he says in verse 14, many of the brethren of the Lord, waxing confident by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. We know the story of Jim Elliot, who was killed by the people. You know, they were cannibals, were they not? You know, Jim Elliot killed. That story inspired thousands of missionaries. Thousands of missionaries. That story of Jim, and we still tell it today. It's inspiring even today. You know, God's still using that. Okay? And then you go in the next verses, and this is where you're dealing a little bit with people in this first part. And Paul says, now catch this. This is his mindset. This is amazing. Because I know I wouldn't respond this way. Okay, he hasn't done anything wrong. He's in bonds, and what happens? Some indeed preach Christ even of envy and strife. Against who? Paul. And some also of goodwill. There's the good ones. The one preached Christ of contention, and the Greek there means a selfish ambition. Okay? Not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. Evidently, they're saying bad things about Paul while he's in custody. They're preaching Christ, but in their sermons, they're ripping Paul. And probably doing it to lift themselves up and make themselves look better. But the other, he says, of love, knowing that I am sent for defense of the gospel. What then? Well, I tell you what, Paul, you got to be angry at them, send out letters telling how bad they are, and all that stuff, complain about it. Wouldn't that be how we react? Sure. And it would seem right, wouldn't it? It would seem right. That's not how Paul reacted. Man, he's crazy. He's on this different level than most Christians live. Because look what he says. What then? Notwithstanding every way, whether in pretense, whether it's false or in truth, Christ is preached. I therein do rejoice. I don't care. They're ripping me, whatever. They're preaching Christ. They're still getting the gospel out. Oh, man. Wow. I'm not going to rip them and tear them down. They're wrong in what they're saying. They're still preaching Christ. I don't want to tear that part down. They got people that are listening to them. What? I mean, are you getting how this is so different than how we think? It's totally different. You know, I mean, I've just been blown away as I was studying. So, number one, now, this was the longest one, just so you know. 2 through 6 will not be as long. But, number one, he has a different view of circumstances. Number two, he has a different view of commitment. A different view of commitment. Here's what Dr. David Jeremiah says. Many among God's people have adopted a philosophy, now get this, that gives to survival the attributes of victory. They come to church, they do the basic things, and a friend of mine, Caleb Cody, talked about this. He's a phenomenal young man. God's changed his life. He went to Word of Life Ministries. He's now a missionary for them. He is crazy for Jesus. You know, God totally turned his life around. He spoke on this and stuff, and he talked about, you know, a lot of people think they're faithful because they simply go to church. Because it's not faithful. I thought, what? Man, in this day and time, that's actually pretty good if you're ready to attend your church. He said, no. No. I know this is meddling, and it kind of makes you mad a little bit. Just a minute, it does a little bit, just for somebody to say that. Just a little bit. He says, man, that's what's expected. That's what Dr. Jeremiah is talking about here. He says, many among God's people have adopted philosophy that gives to survival the attributes of victory. That's what he's saying. Francis Chan does a really neat thing where he gets a balance beam out. You don't have an altar here that's I was traveling, so I won't look all undignified or whatever doing that. But what he does is he gets down, he goes, here's the way a lot of people live their Christian life. They get down, and what he does, you know what I'm talking about, a balance beam, but the people, now his is like just this far above the ground, not up here like the Olympics. But he's letting you know, and what he does is he goes, here's the way a lot of Christians live. He said, they get on the balance beam, and he gets down and he just hugs it. He lays on it, just like this. You know what they want to do? They want to stay safe. He says, I want to get my kids, I want to stay safe. I'm going to homeschool my kids. They're all going to wear helmets so they make sure that nothing happens to them bad. I'm going to tithe, or maybe I'll give 2%. I don't know. Maybe just right at 10. That's what we'll do. Okay, well that's really going extra mile. Okay. But so we'll just do that, and you know, he makes you go to church and stuff, and I don't do anything crazy. It's too risky. So he would just get down. He holds the bounce beam. He goes, and can you imagine? He said, what if a gymnast does that in the Olympics? You're watching them. They're hugging the beam, and all of a sudden, as they get off the beam, they get off. You're laughing, and you should. What's the judge supposed to do with that? Here's my question. Is that not what Christians are doing?
Sure. That's good.
And they expect, he was the one that pointed it out, and I was blown away by it. You know, and they stand before God to do that, and God goes, well done. What? No. But that's where most Christians are living, aren't they?
Right.
That's where they're living, especially here in America. Yeah. And that's where they're living. And so that, Paul is way above that, okay? He says, only let your conversation, in verse 27 of chapter 1, only let your conversation there means a lifestyle, not just your talking. It means your conduct, your lifestyle, be as it becometh the gospel of Christ, okay? Be as it becometh. That means like it's worthy of it. Now, of course, we can't be worthy of the gospel. But what he means is we should walk worthy of the gospel. We should live like that. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? We should live like we were children of the King. We should live that way. Okay? We can never be worthy of, getting the gospel, obviously. But that's what he's saying. We should live in that way. In the Philippians, this word also has a meaning of citizenship. And these Philippians understood this because what they were, and this is really neat. And once again, other people give this to me. This is not something that I can hold my own, because I'm an expert. But anyway, what this is, the Philippians were a Roman colony that was allowed to act like they were a little Rome. And so the citizens of Philippians would understand this. They're kind of like a Rome away from home. In other words, they were, if they didn't want to lose that special status, they were to act like Rome, even though they were not in Rome. You see where that's going? We have citizenship somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah.
We ought to act like that place. They would have gotten what he's saying. When he's saying, you know what? You ought to let your conversation, your lifestyle, your conduct be as it becometh the gospel of Christ. He says that whether I come and see you or else be absent, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit, one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. Alexander the Great one time had a young man brought to him that evidently retreated from battle. And the man was brought before him. And he looked at him and he said, son, he said, tell me your name. He said, my name is Alexander. He said, either change your conduct or change your name. Look, if you're going to wear my name, you better not act like that. Because that's not what I do. Does that make sense? Yeah. Paul understood that whole thing. He had a different level of commitment. So he had a different view of circumstances, a different level of commitment, and he was a team player. Philippians 1:27, at the end of this, he says, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. And this striving is the word we get athlete. You know, I wish, as much as I like sports. You guys like sports? I wish the church saw the church more like a sports team. Here's why. Because a sports team doesn't, one that's a really good team, they understand they're all striving for one goal. Not my individual deal. It's one goal. Now, I am 5'6", and this is all I've ever been, and this is all I'll ever be. I am no big athlete. I wasn't in high school either. Okay, I just wasn't. Okay, I played in band, but it was a really good band. Really. It goes. I marched to Mason's. It's really cool. I can tell you, man. Sometimes we would perform at halftime. People didn't go get popcorn. They wanted to stay here. It felt awesome to perform. Now, as me, no, wasn't that great? To be part of that unit and perform like that. It felt awesome. I'm not an athlete, but I know that's what sports players feel too. And they're part of a great team. Yet somehow the church doesn't get that whole concept. They just don't get it. Unfortunately, the exact opposite's happening in many churches. There's grudges, there's unforgiveness, there's factions, there's divisions, there's all of that. The two things that go toward this the most is selfishness and pride.
Amen. That's right. Amen.
The Corinthian church was doing this. Paul said there's the spiritual man, there's the natural man, which is the unsaved man. Oh, there's a third category. There's saved people, but they're carnal. That means fleshly. They break you down. There's two things what that means. And I was actually teaching on this today. It's so cool how God just brings things together to the high school class. I said, and what they got accused of carnal. We think, and we start as a church. Here's what we do. Okay, there's these vices. You know what I mean by vices? There's these sins that none of us do, or if we do, we don't even know. Okay, but there's vices and stuff. You can name those. And any preacher can bring them out. Well, all amen, it's wrong. Those are not what Paul listed as a problem. No, let's just turn over there. Let's go there. Let's go there. 1 Corinthians, look at this. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And see what he mentions there. He's not mentioning being on drugs or anything like that, or doing some immorality, that we just, no. He says, I brethren cannot speak of you as in the spiritual, but as in the carnal, that means fleshly, even as in the babes in Christ. Okay, I have fed you with milk, not with meat, for hitherto you are not able to bear it, yet neither are you now able, for ye are yet carnal, whereas, here it comes, there is among you envying, strife, divisions. You know what? I'm not talking to that person. You know what they did to me? That's what he's talking about. You know what? I've been doing so-and-so, but she always gets credit for hers, but nobody notices what I do in church. There's that. There's my clique I'm in and somebody else isn't good enough. That's what he's talking about. Yeah. Do you know what fleshly there means? Two things. Number one, if you're doing that, he's saying these two things. At least in that activity, you're acting like an unbeliever. But you don't know what they did. Doesn't matter. Jesus died for your sin.
That's right.
He forgave. Number 2, you're immature. You're a babe in Christ. Now, they weren't babes because they'd just been saved. They were babes because they were acting like it. So, yeah. And so that's what's going on there in the church. In the church, that kind of thing is going on. Okay? And I'm just going to skip ahead and go to through some of my notes here. This whole thing, you know, and I was thinking through this, there's a cool deal. I guess I'll go back and look at, go to Philippians 2, 3 through 4. Go to that first, and we'll come back and look at, kind of makes a positive note. But he says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. Strife is the idea, MacArthur says, is like tearing down others while you build up yourself. Yeah, that's the whole doubt. This is obviously destructive. And then vainglory is this idea of seeking your own personal glory, and yes, you can do this in the church. Okay, focusing on your own goals, what I want, it's pride. Can you imagine? Look, and I said this is why you're going to laugh. I guarantee you're going to laugh. Coach comes to the quarterback. Look, wide receiver number 6. He was open 3 times in that game. He was wide open. I don't mean 5 yards from you. He was wide open. If you got in the ball, he would have been in the end zone. 3 times. What's the deal? Me and him ain't talking right now. We have low up, so we don't. We're not talking right now. If you get things right, then maybe I'll throw the ball. What? Yeah, that would be your response. Everybody would say, that is stupid. What? What are you talking about? Your goal is to win the game. And yet that is exactly, what's more important, the sports team or the church? That's exactly what's going on in churches. I ain't going to pray for so-and-so. I'm not going to help so-and-so. I don't want to serve with so-and-so. Man, that doesn't fit into the whole thing of wanting God's team to win. That doesn't fit at all. And that's going on in churches all over the place. I mean, isn't that dumb? That is never, and I don't care if you're right. I don't care if they did do something that was bad, and yes, you're totally right. Still, to act that way still doesn't help the team, does it? No. You need to pray for that person, do your best to make it right with them. Yeah. And see, Paul is talking about this because Paul lives on a higher plane. He lives on a higher plane. Okay, where we ought to live and get this mentality. I was watching, I know everybody's got their theory of who's the greatest quarterback of all time. I think it's Joe Montana. I always did. I always thought he was the greatest. And I went back and I watched Super Bowl 23, the last drive of it the other day. I watched it where he started. The Bengals were a great team. He started on like, I don't know, 6-yard line somewhere back there with the team. It was like 3 minutes to go. And he led that team and drove them down the field. But it wasn't just Joe Montana. Okay? They asked the team, and they all kept saying the same thing. They said, we were extensions of each other. Isn't that a neat concept? Isn't that neat? I don't care who I am. I don't care. In fact, the winning touchdown was so funny because they showed the guy that was the Bengals coach, and they're like, he's going to throw it to Rice. He's going to throw it to Rice. Taylor. Why? Because Taylor was the better one. Is Rice the greatest receiver on that team? Yeah. But in that play, the best play was to go to Taylor. Who cares who it goes to as long as that ball gets in the end zone? Wouldn't that be a great view for the church to have? We're all extensions of each other. We're all extensions. It doesn't matter. That's the mindset that Paul's got. In fact, he praises a guy. Maybe you've heard of him. His name is Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus is not a preacher. He's not a teacher. He's not a deacon. He's a person that's just in the pew. But that ain't all he does. It says in Philippians 2, 25 and 27, it says, yet I suppose it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, companion in labor, fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants or my needs. For he longed after you all, was full of heaviness, because that ye had heard that he'd been sick. For indeed he was sick, nigh to death. But God had mercy on him, not on him only, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. What happened? He went to minister to Paul for the church. He's just a layman. and he gets sick, almost dies. Evidently, God miraculously heals him. You know, but this is his attitude. He goes, God gives Jeremiah says about this, says, apart from a few verses, Epaphroditus would be an unknown, but in many respects, that fits him anyway. I've got a guy in my group that says, that's what I want to be. Isn't that cool? And I depend on him. He's great. He goes, my thing ain't to teach or anything like that. I want to be Epaphroditus. He can work with his hands. He made a door disappear in the wall. It scared me to death. It's pretty awesome. Just plastered it over. I don't even know what the door was anymore. He's that good. We needed that door going. He did it. Yeah, he's coming in. That's the kind of guy. He said, I want to be like that. Says he was just a layman in the church at Philippi, held no office, wrote no books, gave no sermons, led no great enterprises for God. He was a messenger boy for the gospel, a servant for his Lord. No task was too menial for him to do. No assignment was too little for him to accept. Amen. No risk was too great for him to take. He'd been comfortable with a towel and a basin. Yet Paul calls him brother, companion in labor, a fellow soldier. A guy in my group that I teach made a great point. He says, can you think of any bond that's any stronger than those three? Family, a fellow laborer, and a fellow soldier. Can you think of a bond that's better than those three? Paul, who we would put as number one Christian, made those statements about this layman, Epaphroditus. That would be awesome if Caleb, you have a ton of Epaphroditus here. Maybe you do. It would be awesome. You know, you don't have to be somebody that writes sermons or gives great speeches or whatever. Man, if you're Epaphroditus, look what Paul said about this guy. That's a pretty awesome thing. And you know, God's team needs a lot of those that simply see themselves as extensions of each other. That's a pretty cool deal. Okay? And that's what Epaphroditus was. So, a different view of circumstances, a different level of commitment, being a team player. Also, Paul knew how to view people. I don't know if you guys have heard the tallies, people in the line. That is absolutely convicting song. People on the line, people on the road, people in the pew. Where they're getting the big picture is what happens in that. They're getting the big picture. The people in the line, they're taking too much time. You have no idea what's going on in that person's life. The people on the road, that guy just got in front of me. Man, he may have things on his mind dealing with burdens that you would never dream of dealing with. Never. You know. I mean, that's that thinking that steps out of how it affects me, and says, God, what is going on in the bigger picture? Let me see if you kind of get this, because let's just put it where it's at. You just finished eating at a restaurant, and the server wasn't very good. What's our natural response? Leave a penny in a track. That's real effective, by the way. I worked in a restaurant before. They hate that. That track is very effective. Don't do that. If you ever want your track to be effective, you better leave a tip. That's right. Yeah, they're working for that. They'll respect your track when you respect it. Amen. Amen. Okay, I can just tell you, because I was managing, not a manager, but like assistant manager, and they knew I was a Christian, and they brought this stuff to me. People that were saved at waiting tables. Yeah, sure did. I mean, I'll just be honest. You know who some of the worst people they did work to wait on? Christians on a Sunday. Church people, yes, on a Sunday. Yes, you're absolutely right. Isn't that sad? That's sad. That's a big ouch. Right. And that wasn't just that restaurant. You could go ask others. Yes. Yeah. That's bad, isn't it? It's because they're self-righteous and things like that. It's wrong. They have a big picture. You know what? That person that's serving you, if you have a big picture, you say, I bet that girl has some rough stuff that's going on in her life today. She may have come to work because it's the safest place she can be. Maybe work is the most in control place that she can be. When she goes home, it's horrible. Who knows what burden she's carrying? That's a big picture view, isn't it? You know what? She didn't do well. I'm going to leave her a good tip. I'm going to leave her a track. I'm going to ask her, hey, you look like you're having a down day. Can I pray for you? See, that's a big picture. But we have to get rid of our American idea. I love America. But our American idea of my rights to do that. Because we're Christians above Americans. That's right. We are. And we see how Jesus treated people. And that's the way. And that requires humility. It's wild because if you know Philippians was in chapter 2. The greatest example of humility starts in verse 5. Jesus Christ himself. Can any of us drop any lower than Jesus did from where he was at? No. No. And he's an example to all of us, okay, to do this. So that was number 4. We've got a different view of circumstances, a different level of commitment, being a team player. And it's how we view people. All this was different. How about how we act around people is number 5. And I don't mean at church, although hopefully it's good at church. But I mean in the workplace. I mean in the family. I mean in school. I mean that. Philippians 2:12-13, do all things, all, without murmurings and disputings. That's right. Murmurings is that, yeah, we watch Fred Flintstone, we got mad. That kind of thing. And then disputings is always want to argue about stuff. Well, I think it's right, it needs so to me. I blah, 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 blah. You know, all that kind of thing like that. A big picture sees above that. Here, see, Paul's giving us the big picture. Don't do that stuff. Well, why? That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. Among whom, if you act like you're supposed to, I'll put it there, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. See, if you grumble, complain, just like everybody else at work, do you stand out? No. Other than if they know you're a Christian and think, well, that's the way a Christian acts. You don't stand out. But what about when everybody else is grumbling about it, but you continue to do your job with excellence, with a smile, with a good attitude? Does that stand out? You better believe it. See, now you're shining as a light in the midst of a perverse world, which we definitely have today. And why is that important? Just so you stand out? No, look at this. Holding forth the word of life. Because when you do that, now they want to know what they teach at your church that you go to. Now they want to know what's up with them. Hey, they'll start asking you Bible questions. Do you see that? They're not doing that, though, if you're just acting like everybody else. They're not. See, this is big picture thinking. This says, you know what? It's not a big deal that the boss did something that, yes, absolutely is unfair. I'm not complaining about it right now. Because I want to shine as a light for Jesus Christ. That's a big picture thinking. That's what Paul has. That's what I want. That's what I hope that you want. And if Christians, more Christians had this, man, it would change everything. It would change everything if we acted that way. Just to have this kind of thing to where our outside... here's what happens. Spiritual things are here at church. And then we put everything else in a different box. Spiritual things are always everywhere.
Amen. Amen. That's right.
God can work through you doing your job with a Christian attitude just as much as He works through Brother Caleb. Can I say that?
That's right.
Because people who may not listen to Caleb listen to you.
That's right.
If you're acting right on the job. They will. They sure will. And so Paul knew this, you know, and he's passed that along to us. So a different view of circumstances, a different level of commitment, being a team player. It's how we view people with a bigger picture instead of how it affects me. How we act around people and not just at church. And last of all, this is very short, just look at the verses. How we handle things that make us anxious. Well, that song Ollie sang fits right in with this. Philippians, actually got the wrong verses here, but it's be careful for nothing. And everything, yeah, Philippians 4, 6 and 7. Be careful. What that means is don't worry. Don't worry. Okay? Philippians 4, 6 and 7, he says, be careful for nothing, but in everything, whatever's making you anxious and worried and all that stuff, everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Remember what God's done in the past? What He's done for you? Let your requests be known to God. Give it to God. And here's what happens. This is one of the coolest. Salvation is the number one coolest deal in the world. This one may be the second. Okay? And the peace of God, you give Him your problems. Here's what He gives you. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep, that means to guard, your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? That's a promise. And Paul's giving you that. That's a different level. I'm worried about this. Stop. I didn't say don't be concerned. I understand that. There's concern. Don't act like it doesn't exist. That's some weird Eastern religion stuff. But take it to the King of Kings, to your Heavenly Father, and give it to Him. Does that mean that He will fix all your problems all the time? Well, not the way you think that He should.
That's right.
But it does mean that He will do exactly what is according to His plan. And He is in control. You give it to Him, and then, because what you going to worry about? Who here has solved anything by worrying? Ever? It doesn't solve anything, does it? I mean, there's things you can do that's your responsibility, but the worrying part never accomplishes a thing. Except taking years off your life. You know? Yeah. It's crazy, but we do it a lot, don't we? Because it feels responsible to worry. But it doesn't do anything. Give it to God, who created the universe. And it says, this is His deal, this is a promise. He gives you peace for doing that. Isn't that awesome? So tonight, I mean, I hope I'm not kept you too long and stuff. Once again, it's a different view of circumstances that Paul's living on this different level. I want to live that, and hopefully you do too. Where I view the circumstances differently than the way most people do. A different level of commitment. Not just existing, but living like Jesus is giving our rewards away someday. You know? That kind of thing. And He is. You know? Being a team player, it's not all about me. It's about the team, and it's about the team's goals. Okay? It's about what Christ wants and accomplish He knows. And whatever role I got to play, hey man, you know, sometimes the quarterback gets to throw the pass. Sometimes there's this brutal play that's called the option, where if the quarterback runs it the best way he can run it, he gets creamed. Yeah. He makes it look like he's going to run with the ball, and he dishes it off right at the last minute when he knows for sure that that guy's going to come tackle him, is committed to tackling him. And the better he sells it, the more it's going to hurt. But the better he sells it, the more chance that the guy who does get the ball is going to run down that field for more yardage, maybe even a touchdown. And you know, but what good quarterback goes, man, that hurt, but man, that's good to score. Because he doesn't care. Yeah. If we could all be like that, be an Epaphroditus, man, it'd be awesome. How we view people, how we act around people, and how we handle the things that make us anxious. This is what Paul was living, the level he was living at. Okay? I think it's a perspective that all of us should want to have. And we could say with Paul, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. So I hope you've gotten what I have gleaned, that God showed me. This joy thing is even deeper than what I thought, even higher than what I thought. And really a neat thing that Paul had that I wouldn't. And I hope that all of you guys would want it as well. It will change